So this channel is about living here in Northern Nevada. And normally we do videos about neighborhoods, home prices, greatest places to eat, fun things to do. And today we want to spin this video in a little bit of a different direction. And for those of you that don't live in Reno, this one's just as important for you as is for the locals here. For the people that reach out to us from this channel, usually you're thinking about moving here and you want to buy a house here, but many of you have homes to sell where you live. And here's a question we want to ask you is, would you sell your car for half its value just to avoid the paperwork? And I don't think most of you will, but that's exactly what happens when you try to sell your home using one of these, what we call we buy homes companies, or people that will offer you cash for these houses. And especially here in Reno, we're starting to see it more and more. If you think you're saving money, you're not. As always, we brought Sydney Lessinger on, and we want to talk about some of these things. And I know you did some specific research, and the first thing we wanted to talk about is typically when you're, we just had this happen where a buyer called us about one of our own listings, was unrepresented. And what are they trying to avoid, or what are we research thinking? What are they trying to avoid?
The biggest thing that they try to avoid is agent compensation. That typically is where people's brains go first in terms of the biggest potential fee that they're going to have in their real estate transaction. The draw to those We Buy Homes companies is cash. It's quick, it's fast, there's no muss, no fuss, no repairs necessary, no MLS, nothing like that. And that's kind of the promise that they're giving you, but there's a catch.
And there's always a catch. And I tell people all the time, even when we have regular homes listed for sale, when people make offers for cash, they think they're going to get a dramatic discount in the price. And in reality, the only difference between a cash buyer and someone getting a loan, especially if they've got pre-approval, they've gone along the process, is the time frame of it. Most of them, it's just like cash to the seller. So it's not one of these things where, unless they were in some sort of real rush to get their home sold, the cash days of having an offer way less and I've got cash, you don't see much of a discount as far as that stuff goes. But what is the actual reality? So when we tell people, let's say we had a home and our average price in our market, we're just going to say it's $500,000. How much do they think they're going to save versus actually how much it ends up costing them in the long run?
Right. They typically think they're going to save by avoiding an agent about 3 to maybe 6, maybe more 8-ish%. It kind of will depend on where you live, what your kind of fees are, what you've negotiated previous to listing your home. And with a We Buy Homes company and or potential cash buyers, you're looking to potentially lose 20 to 40% when you're trying to save a smaller percentage.
I had one of my sellers do this years ago. They got panicky and they thought the market was getting soft and they really wanted to sell their house. They took one of these offers and they legitimately sold their house for about $70,000 less than I think we could have sold it for. And so what people have to understand is that if you think that they're going to come in and give you what we call fair market value, and everyone has their opinions of what fair market value is, that's not really going to happen. So let's say we did some research and we thought somebody's house was really worth $500,000. Mm-hmm. Typically, what is the process? How does this We Buy Homes or these cash buyers or these companies, I know you have some stuff there, where do they usually start with that stuff?
So they'll take their opinion anyway of what your home's, for lack of a better term, fair market value is.
Their opinion.
Yes, their opinion. There is no appraiser, there is no agent, there are no comps run. They walk into your house and say it's worth $500,000, whether it actually is or not. They then will walk through your house and they will also take what they call the
repairs.
Yeah, it's not fully repairs, but it's kind of a repair thing.
They'll go to the condition. So if your house is in mint condition, they're just going to start taking cosmetic items, repairs, all kinds of stuff.
And they'll also build into their contract. So you do all of this on their company's contract, not an agent contract, not one that you have seen. So read them carefully, but because there are sometimes little sections in there, that's another cost associated. That's another ding. That's another fee. So then you're started at $500,000 and by the time they do all of their work, you're sitting at $350,000.
I guess in certain situations, there could be a time for some people that this does make sense. But again, this goes back to what we said at the very beginning is, are you going to sell it to somebody for a whole lot less because you don't want to have people walking through your house and show it? You don't want to go through the process of the way a more traditional listing works. And it is funny sometimes how people think they're going to save money. It's no different than these for sale by owner companies where you can pay a fee just to put your home in the MLS, or you can pay a discount company. We used to have Assist Us Sell and Help You Sell headquartered here. And there were times when the market was flying that those companies could help some people, especially if you have a little experience doing it. But it's funny, as soon as the market changes, those companies all disappear and they go away, and it becomes a whole different demographic. So if you want to sell your home for a whole lot less because you don't want to go through the headaches and the work of doing a more traditional listing, then we can do that. And here's kind of what I tell people in pricing a home. There's kind of 3 ways to do it. We all figure out what we think fair market price is. And if we're going to use $500,000 as a number, great. Some clients are going to want to list it for higher to give themselves some wiggle room, some negotiation points. It's, in some markets, I guess it could be a good strategy. I'm not a huge fan. And if you overprice it, technically a little, sometimes you might even get it. So you have that option, price at what's fair market value, or you have that other strategy, which I'm not a fan of, where people will dramatically list it for less than, trying to bid the price up and maybe get what they want. But if you think your home's worth $500,000 and you think one of these cash companies is going to sell it, buy it for $500,000, you are sadly mistaken. That it's just not the way that it's going to work. And again, you're using contracts that are different, other stuff that's different. Some of the things that we do to protect people that we wrote down here are.
So you will have appraisals, disclosures. You will be, first off, you'll have representation of people who do this every single day. We are very familiar with the contracts. We're very familiar with the process of how everything works. We know what directions we can go in terms of being able to ask questions to make sure you're getting all of the information possible out of this house so that you know you're making a smart purchase.
And I know, like with these companies, that original price you're offering. So for example, I own rental properties in another state. You, for some reason, seem to be getting phone calls about my rental property. Yes. Someone saying, hey, are you interested in selling your house?
Yep.
Now you'll get two different kinds of people. You'll get realtors who are calling saying they have a buyer. Some may do. Most of the time they do not. They're looking to try to list your home. But some of these other companies that are calling about buying my house, we've always asked them, well, make us an offer.
Right.
And the question always becomes, well, how much do you want? So they never actually get to the pricing thing because they know that they're going to offer you way less than whatever the fair market number is. And most people, I think, they always start off on a Zillow or a Redfin or some website like that to kind of get a ballpark. But usually they have their estimate, and then there's this wide range of what the prices are going to look like. So you actually called one of these companies, and they called, was it my house, in one of my rental house, or was it the house I live in?
It was the house in Indiana.
Okay. So they called about one of the houses in Indiana, and how did this go?
So I spoke with the guy, and I never let on that I was an agent, never let on that I know anything about real estate, because I wanted the full honest answer from this guy.
Right.
And he was very polite, first off. So that's one thing. They will get you because they are very nice.
Yes.
So I asked him, how does the process work? What are we doing? And he said, everything will happen on their forms, which I have an example of. It's 128
yeah,
pages.
we brought it with us, and we were laughing how big it was.
It's crazy. And our documentation, at least the contract portion, this does not count disclosures, is 11 pages. Right. So what is this 128 pages of just jargon that they're just throwing out at you?
It's kind of like new construction where you have just a massive amount of extra paperwork.
So then he said he would schedule an appointment. He would come to the house. He would do his price assessment and his repair assessment. After that, they have a formula. And here's the formula that I used with the average home price here in Reno, which is $519,000. With the We Buy Homes company, you're looking at about 20 to 30% lower than what your home potentially could sell for. So you're looking at about $375,000 that this company is supposedly going to pay you cash for your property.
And we said to people, if you go more the traditional route, I always tell people to estimate roughly anywhere between 6 and 8% between title, escrow, compensation to a realtor, whatever the case may be. And we did that. So if you took 519, I don't know exactly what percentage you did, but we came up with a number just under $488,000.
Yep.
So if both homes technically were selling for the same price, you walked away with $100,000+ more dollars because you were willing to go through the headaches of getting your home ready for sale, figuring out what pitfalls you might have, and you're way more protected in the fact that you're using what is common and customary in your area.
So this is the promise. This was the letter that I received in the mail, and this was the phone number that I called.
And we get these all the time at my house.
We do, all the time.
Yeah.
And for whatever reason, I'm the contact person that they're always looking for, which I have nothing to do with your real estate. But basically, these are the three main promises they make you. No repairs needed, that they buy homes exactly as they are, mess damage, outdated kitchens, no problem.
Which is true.
Yep.
But they're going to charge you for it.
Absolutely.
So it's like they're not going to ask you to do these things. They're just going to say these things cost X, and then they're going to go X times 2 is what we want to deduct off the price.
Yep.
Okay, number 2.
The next is no compensation or fees. You won't pay a dime in realtor fees or closing costs.
So with that being said, this is the same thing why some people go for sell by owner.
Yes.
Because they think they're going to save themselves in compensation. And every person we've ever had that was interested in a for sell by owner, the first thing a buyer's thinking is, well, if they're going to sell it themselves, then I want to reduce the price because they don't have to worry about that compensation. So they're already trying to deduct it off your price anyway.
Yep.
Third.
And the third one is no waiting, that they can close in as little as 7 days.
Which is true. So if you are someone who is in some sort of, I need the money and I got to get it sold and I'm willing to take a huge discount on my price, I guess there is a place for sometimes that to be the reason why somebody would do it. I know sometimes if somebody inherits a house and there's multiple siblings and nobody wants to deal with it, like anything else, it's no different when I talk about renting versus owning. There are times where renting makes sense. Just like in this case, I guess there are times for people where they don't want to go through the process and they just want to get rid of their house. So I guess it can work that way. Do we have any clients that we know that actually, well, I have the one that did this.
Yeah, the example that I have for this contract in here, we had a couple who were trying to move here from California, and they were starting to get impatient with themselves. They had their home listed with a talented agent in Southern California, and the market down there was just slow. They were unwilling to play the patience game, and this company came a-knocking, because they always do, and they really legitimately almost sold their home for pennies on the dollar to a We Buy Homes company just to get to Reno.
I remember this now, and in all reality, if they would have just taken our guidance and the other realtors' guidance, they would have sold there, bought here, they would already live here, and as far as we know, they still have never moved here.
Right.
Because at this point, we stopped working with them because they just wouldn't take our counsel and guidance, so we moved on with those guys. If you're someone who's thinking about moving to Northern Nevada, do me a favor. Click the link in the description below. You get a copy of our free buyer's guide that will get you a lot of great information on your journey to Northern Nevada. The reason why sometimes people want to do this is deciding on whether it's a buyer's market or a seller's market. And we've been joking about this right now. What kind of market do sellers think it is?
Sellers.
And what kind of market do buyers think it is?
Buyers.
And for the first time, obviously in your career, but I've been doing this a long time, we would say for the most part, it's about as even it's been in a long time.
Absolutely.
And so again, depending on price points, neighborhoods, areas, age of houses, condition, we have seen a few times lately where we have had, when I say multiple offers, maybe 2 or 3 offers on a house, but we've also had other houses that have been on the market for 2 or 3 weeks and not even had a showing. So the market's a little more balanced. Would you agree with that? Has your clients seen that when they're out there?
Absolutely. I think when we go see properties, it's always so funny now because the market has slowed a little bit, at least in Reno. And I know the sellers are getting a little wary that their homes have been on for maybe 30 days, 35 days, 45 days, which hasn't been happening. And the buyers are sitting there going, well, what's wrong with these houses?
And when we say the market has slowed, there's a difference between the health of the real estate market and the pricing versus it's slowed. Slow just means it's taking longer for homes to sell. I've seen some stats recently where they're talking about for the first time in a long time, there's dramatically more homes for sale than buyers looking. I have no idea how they would come up with a statistic like that, but they did. Because again, there's lots of people that are on the fence that might be looking that are cash or whatever that I don't know how they would ever know. But according to what they're saying and stats I've seen lately, that's been the case. So if you need to sell your home quickly, rather than using a for sale by home strategy, you could just price your home a little more aggressively and still make things happen a lot more quickly. And we've had conversation with people depending on what that is. So I just want people to understand, like, you can still sell your home quickly because a question we get is always, how long is it going to take to sell?
Right.
And again, if we talk about that $500,000 number, if you're priced for $450,000, you're going to sell real quick and you're still going to get a lot more money than if you did it the other way. And if you want to price your home for $550,000, then it might take a whole lot longer. And that's always that discussion that we're talking about as far as all that stuff goes. So with all this being said, what are some of the big red flags, the big things that they need to be cautious about if they just, one, their home, they're not even thinking about something, they just get a random phone call like we have, or they've really raised their hand and communicated with us that they're thinking about this or they want to move. What are some of the big red flags for these companies?
There's no license required. They are often unregulated companies that they can pretty much just go and do this. They wrote these contracts themselves. There was there was not really any sort of legal obligation here to do right by other people. The next are wholesaling contracts that can trap you in bad deals.
Right. And when we say wholesaling contracts, I mean, you see this term get thrown out there. And it's really just companies reaching out to them about selling their homes. You might actually, sometimes these companies, you get offers that are written, it'll say et al. Or an LLC or some other things. And a lot of times what they're doing is they're writing you an offer with the intent to turn in and flip that house either before it's even closed or immediately thereafter. So they know they're getting a deal. They've already pulled in another buyer. So there could be a multiple buyer stream of those people. And then again, we want to review those contracts. They're super thick, they're super heavy, and there's just a lot of information that we're not really aware of. So if you're thinking about selling your biggest asset, especially for you, the whole point of this channel is to teach people about Reno and Northern Nevada. But in this case, many of you are reaching out to us about moving here and you need to sell somewhere else. We can get you a realtor. We can put you, we just did it twice today.
We did.
Where we can get you somebody where you live in order to help you on that end so that you know, hey, I'd rather see you be a little more aggressive in your pricing and maybe you sell your home for 5 or 10% less than you really could if you had lots and lots of time, rather than go this route and really sort of do something silly that is unnecessary to do. Any last kind of words or anything that you've seen recently? I know we had a couple examples. Any other things you think people need to be aware of?
Not at the moment, but if you have any questions or something seems a little off or a little, ooh, maybe this is new to you, call us.
Absolutely.
Always call us.
Absolutely. So if you're someone who's thinking about moving to Reno, check out this video we did right here about how to have a great experience and use a realtor properly.